Exactly a year after my sister bought my husband with a $3 million check, she spotted me in a hospital lobby and sneered that he had a child with my former best friend. My parents nodded in quiet approval, watching in smug satisfaction as I simply smiled and asked if that was really the story she had been told. 2 minutes later, my ex-husband walked through the sliding glass doors, flanked by federal process servers, and my sister's face lost every single drop of color. Within 48 hours, her fake marriage, her trust fund, and her pristine social status vanished into absolute ruin. My name is Carla Rajas. To fully understand how a casual encounter in a hospital waiting room triggered the total financial and social liquidation of my family within 48 hours, you have to look into the toxic, money-obsessed dynamic that defined the Rajas family. Growing up in the affluent enclave of Crestview Heights, my parents operated on a strict, superficial hierarchy. My younger sister, Alexis, was the undisputed golden child, a vain, ruthless social climber who was given everything she ever desired, from trust funds to luxury sports cars. I, on the other hand, was treated as an unwanted competitor whose accomplishments were routinely minimized or outright ignored by a family that measured human worth solely by bank balances and social clout. 5 years ago, I married Damon Vance. At the time, my family viewed Damon as a modest, working-class architect who was beneath our family's lofty social standing. What my parents and sister never knew was that my own professional career was far from modest. I was the managing senior principal at Vane and Sterling Capital, a premier high-level forensic financial firm that specialized in corporate debt restructuring, asset acquisition, and commercial fraud enforcement across the entire tri-state area. Because I valued quiet privacy and despised my family's shallow arrogance, I kept my executive position, my corporate authority, and my multi-million-dollar personal portfolio completely hidden from them, choosing to live a grounded, understated life in a modest suburban home. Alexis, however, could not stomach the idea that I was happy and content in my marriage. She viewed my peaceful existence as an insult to her overinflated ego, believing that everything I possessed should rightfully belong to her simply because she was the favored daughter. A little over a year ago, Alexis set out to execute the ultimate humiliation against me. Using $3 million from her private trust account, she secretly approached my husband, Damon. She offered him a life of unlimited luxury, secondary expense accounts, and an executive vice president title at her newly launched fashion distribution firm if he abandoned me, filed for divorce, and married her instead. Damon, whose moral compass was far weaker than I had ever imagined, proved to be entirely spineless. Seduced by the promise of effortless wealth and Alexis's relentless manipulation, he surrendered to her offer. Within 6 weeks, he served me with cold divorce papers, packed his bags, and moved into Alexis's lavish estate in Crestview Heights. To make the betrayal even more devastating, my former best friend, Chloe Mercer, publicly took Alexis's side, helping my sister organize a grand, televised wedding ceremony just 30 days after my divorce was finalized. My parents stood beside Alexis at the altar, beaming with pride, telling extended relatives that Damon had finally upgraded to the superior Rajas sister. Throughout the entire nightmare, I never begged Damon to stay. I didn't scream at Alexis, nor did I confront my parents. I signed the divorce papers with an icy, silent composure, packed my belongings, and walked away. But my silence was not weakness. It was strategic preparation. I knew my sister's psychological profile intimately. Alexis was driven entirely by impulsiveness and superficial vanity. She had spent $3 million to buy my husband, completely unaware that in doing so, she had committed severe financial crimes and set off a chain reaction that would dismantle her entire world. To pay Damon the $3 million and cover his exorbitant personal lifestyle, Alexis had illegally siphoned capital from her trust account and forged commercial credit guarantees against my parents' real estate holdings. Furthermore, to keep Damon tied to her, Alexis had hired Chloe Mercer as a highly paid consultant at her distribution firm, creating a web of fraudulent payroll accounts to funnel off-book cash. Unknown to all of them, Vane and Sterling Capital held the primary underlying debt lines for both Alexis's distribution company and my parents' real estate holdings. For 12 months, I sat in my corner office, quietly monitoring every illegal transaction, waiting for the exact moment when their arrogance would reach its absolute peak. That moment arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning at St. Jude Regional Medical Center. I was standing near the central reception desk, holding a folder of routine medical reports for an executive health review, when I heard the sharp click of designer heels behind me. I turned around to find Alexis, my mother, Helena, and my father, Victor, walking toward the VIP elevator suite. Alexis was wearing an expensive trench coat, holding a leather handbag, her posture radiating artificial authority. The moment her eyes landed on me, her expression shifted into a smug, condescending sneer. "Well, look who it is," Alexis said loudly, stepping directly into my personal space so the surrounding visitors could hear every word. "I see you're still creeping around in off-brand clothes, Carla. A whole year after the divorce, and you're still wandering around alone." My parents stood directly behind her, folding their arms, refusing to greet me. My mother adjusted her pearl necklace with a cold smirk, while my father looked out the glass window, completely indifferent to my presence. Alexis stepped closer, lowering her voice so that her words felt like venom dripping into my ear. "Damon realized what a boring, pathetic excuse for a woman you were. He didn't just move on with me, Carla. He has a son now, a beautiful baby boy with Chloe Mercer, the woman you used to call your best friend. They've been having a private affair right under your nose for years. You lost everything, and nobody in this city even remembers your name." My parents offered soft, cruel chuckles, clearly enjoying the public degradation of their eldest daughter. They expected me to break down in tears, to cover my face in shame, or to run out of the hospital lobby into the rain. Instead, I took a slow, deep breath, looked my sister straight in her glittering eyes, and allowed a calm, radiant smile to spread across my face. "Is that what she told you, Alexis?" I asked softly, my voice completely steady. Alexis frowned, her smirk wavering for a fraction of a second as she registered my complete lack of distress. "What are you talking about?" she snapped defensively. "Chloe gave birth 2 months ago. Damon is the father. They're celebrating at my estate right now." 2 minutes, I said calmly, glancing down at my diamond wristwatch. "Just wait 2 minutes." Before Alexis could hurl another insult, the automatic sliding glass doors at the main entrance of the hospital hissed open. Heavy, echoing footsteps resonated across the polished marble floor. Alexis turned her head casually toward the door, expecting to see medical personnel, but as her eyes locked onto the figures walking into the lobby, her jaw dropped and the color drained from her face so fast she looked like a ghost. Walking into the lobby was Damon Vance. But he didn't look like a proud, wealthy husband. His clothes were rumpled, his hair was disheveled, and his eyes were hollowed out by pure, unadulterated terror. Walking on either side of him were 2 senior federal investigators from the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, alongside Arthur Vance, the lead legal counsel for my firm, Vane and Sterling Capital. Damon walked straight toward our group, his hands trembling violently as he held a thick stack of certified legal documents. He didn't even look at my parents. He stopped 3 feet away from Alexis, his voice cracking into a desperate, panicked wheeze. Alexis, it's over, Damon gasped, his breath ragged. They know everything. The federal agents served me at the house an hour ago. Alexis stumbled backward, her hand flying to her throat as she stared at her broken husband in total shock. Damon, what are you doing here? Why are you with federal officers? What is happening? Arthur Vance, my lead attorney, stepped forward, opening a dark leather briefcase and handing an official blue-bound dossier directly to my sister. Alexis Rojas, Arthur announced in a loud, clear voice that carried across the entire hospital lobby. I am serving you with an immediate federal indictment for corporate tax evasion, wire fraud, and the illegal conversion of $3.5 million in commercial credit lines. My father, Victor, finally snapped out of his silent posture, stepping forward with an angry glare. What is the meaning of this insolence? Victor demanded, raising his voice. My daughter is a prominent business owner. You can't serve papers to her in a hospital. Do you know who I am? We know exactly who you are, Mr. Rojas, Attorney Vance replied coldly, pulling a second set of documents from his briefcase and slapping them directly into my father's chest. Which is why you are officially being served with a notice of immediate foreclosure on your Crestview Heights estate. Alexis used your property deeds as illegal collateral for her fraudulent distribution firm. Because her loans are now in default, Vane and Sterling Capital has exercised its legal right to seize the estate. My mother let out a shrill, horrified shriek, clutching my father's arm as if she were about to faint. Foreclosure? Our home? Alexis, what did you do? Alexis was trembling uncontrollably, her eyes darting frantically between the officers and the documents in her trembling hands. This is a mistake, she screamed hysterically. Damon, tell them you took the money. Tell them about your son with Chloe. Damon let out a bitter, heartbroken laugh, looking at Alexis with pure disgust. There is no son, Alexis, Damon confessed, his voice echoing loudly off the glass walls. The court-ordered DNA paternity test came back yesterday afternoon. The baby isn't mine. Chloe was sleeping with Bradley Thorne, the lender you hired to launder your company cash. You paid $3 million to buy a husband, but Chloe and Bradley were using both of us to bleed your accounts dry from the very beginning. Alexis gasped, staggering backward until her back hit the marble pillar. Her precious illusion of victory, her fake marriage, and her social standing collapsed into ash in a matter of seconds. Damon turned toward me, his eyes filled with pathetic, weeping desperation. He took a step closer, dropping onto one knee right on the hospital floor, reaching out toward my chutes. Carla, please, Damon sobbed, tears streaming down his pale cheeks. I was blind. Alexis manipulated me. She offered me the money. She forced me to sign those papers. I never stopped loving you, Carla. Please, tell your firm to drop the charges. I'll do anything. I'll be your husband again. I stepped back, looking down at the weeping man who had traded his honor for a check, my eyes completely cold and devoid of pity. You didn't just trade your marriage for money, Damon, I said, my voice razor-sharp and unshakable. You traded your integrity. You chose Alexis's wealth over a faithful wife. Now you can share her prison sentence. I looked over at my sister, who was standing against the pillar, weeping uncontrollably as federal officers stepped forward to attach heavy steel handcuffs to her wrists. You came here today to brag about buying my husband, Alexis, I whispered, stepping right in front of her trembling face. You thought you won a prize, but in reality, you paid $3 million to buy a sinking ship. In 48 hours, you lost your marriage, your fortune, your home, and your pride, and you will never, ever get them back. My parents fell to their knees on the lobby floor, begging me to save their estate, crying out my name in desperate, pathetic pleas. Carla, please, you're our daughter. Don't do this to your family. Tell the firm to stop, my mother wailed, holding onto my coat. I gently pulled my coat from her grip, looked my parents dead in the eye, and said,
You stayed silent when she tried to destroy me. Now stay silent while the law destroys you. I turned on my heel, my executive heels clicking rhythmically against the marble floor, and walked out through the automatic glass doors into the bright morning sunlight. Standing outside was my executive driver, holding open the door of a sleek black sedan. I stepped inside, settled into the plush leather seat, and took a deep, refreshing breath of pure freedom. The 48 hours that followed were a masterclass in swift, absolute justice. Damon's frantic emergency annulment petition was granted immediately by the court on grounds of systemic fraud and material misrepresentation. Stripped of his fake executive title and facing severe civil liabilities for his role in the payroll scheme, he was left completely penniless, his credit score destroyed, and his professional reputation as an architect permanently blacklisted throughout the state. Unable to pay his legal fees, he was forced to take a low-level night shift security job just to afford a tiny basement room on the industrial edge of the city. Alexis's fate was far worse. Exposed for multi-million-dollar wire fraud, tax evasion, and commercial forgery, her fashion distribution company was placed into immediate court-ordered receivership. Vane and Sterling Capital liquidated every single asset tied to her name. 48 hours after her arrest at the hospital, her grand wedding was officially annulled, her trust fund was completely exhausted to satisfy corporate creditors, and she was sentenced to 4 years in a federal correctional facility.
My former best friend, Chloe Mercer, along with her co-conspirator Bradley Thorne, was indicted on federal money laundering charges. Their illegal assets were seized by the state, leaving Chloe broke, facing potential prison time, and abandoned by the high society circles she had sacrificed her integrity to join. My parents, Victor and Helena, lost their grand estate in Crestview Heights to foreclosure. Unable to maintain their lavish lifestyle without Alexis's trust fund or my financial support, they were forced to downsize into a small 2-bedroom rental apartment on the outskirts of the county. The wealthy socialites who had once attended their grand dinner parties vanished overnight, leaving them isolated in the quiet reality of their own complicity. Meanwhile, my life flourished into an era of unshakable prosperity, peace, and triumph. As managing senior principal, I expanded Vane and Sterling Capital's philanthropic branch, creating a multi-million-dollar fund dedicated to providing financial independence grants and legal resources for women recovering from toxic, financially abusive marriages. Surrounded by true colleagues, loyal friends, and an unshakable sense of self-worth, I moved forward into a future of magnificent abundance. Sitting in my sunlit corner office overlooking the city skyline, I knew that real victory is never bought with money. It is earned through quiet dignity, strategic patience, and the absolute, uncompromising power of truth. Educational lesson. This story illustrates a fundamental truth about human nature, transactional relationships, and the illusion of material power. Love, loyalty, and integrity can never be purchased with money. When individuals use wealth to manipulate others, undermine family members, or buy relationships, they construct a fragile reality built entirely on deceit and superficial greed. Arrogance creates a profound operational blindness, leading toxic people to believe that quiet, dignified individuals are weak or defenseless. In reality, true strength is built on self-control, legal competence, and strategic patience. Cruelty and betrayal inevitably trigger systemic accountability, and those who weaponize money to inflict pain on others will ultimately find themselves financially, morally, and socially bankrupt. Personal advice. If you ever find yourself betrayed by a partner, a friend, or family members who choose material gain over genuine loyalty, do not waste your precious energy on emotional outbursts, public arguments, or desperate pleas.
Recognize that someone who can be bought away from you was never truly yours to begin with, and their departure is a massive liberation. Channel your grief into quiet self-reliance. Build your financial and legal independence in silence, and establish absolute boundaries that protect your peace. Allow toxic individuals to drown in the consequences of their own shallow choices. When truth and accountability finally expose their betrayal, do not step back out of guilt or misplaced nostalgia. Step proudly into the light of your accomplishments, embrace your sovereignty, and never look back.